Hi there, and welcome everybody to Web and Beyond Live for August 24th, 2020. I'm Ray Sidney Smith, president of W3 Consulting. I'm also managing director of our subsidiary, W3C Web Services, which provides affordable web and WordPress hosting, domain registration, and other web-related services for small businesses. This is Web and Beyond Live, our weekly show that talks about digital marketing for small businesses, things that are happening in the small business marketing world. I talk about personal productivity and productivity technologies for small business owners and more. So welcome everybody to today's episode. Today is actually a continuation of last week's episode. Last week I started our social media monthly episode, but there was just so much news. I split it up into 2 episodes, and we'll probably have to do that in the future as we see more and more items coming on board. I'm going to do our updates for this week, things that I've been noticing happening in the world of small business marketing, and then we will kick into finishing off our social media news for the past 4 to 6 weeks or so. So with that, the first thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was, and I'm going to try and bring these up on screen so you can see them with me. But I came across this, I think, CNBC video that talked about the current climate of what's happening in terms of small business. And one of the things that they noted was that, as you can see from this chart here, more large businesses are capable of surviving and more small businesses are being hit harder in and during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is, of course, probably not news to you and I, but I think it's important for us all to take kind of stock in the reality of what we're dealing with in terms of, I heard their news report basically say, we're talking 18 months of, what they're calling nightmare on Main Street, but not being cheeky. We really need to be understanding of the fact that we're dealing with what is going to be a very hard economic downturn for small business, and that means lower access to credit. The PPP loans, the money from that is now going to be dissipating over the course of time, which means that unemployment numbers are going to continue to rise, and we're going to just see more economic backlash, and we're going to continue to suffer. That being the case, we all need to be dynamic and start to pivot. And so if you are coming into contact with small business owners who are not yet in that place where they're ready to come to terms with the fact that the type of business they have may not survive this pandemic, now is the time to have that conversation with them, that they need to start pivoting from where they are to where they're going, especially as they're having to meet payroll over and over again, or having to, do further furloughs or terminations, basically bloodletting the payroll to be able to survive as a business. They should be doing that fundamental work to be able to figure out what it is they can do to move with the cheese, to basically change paradigms. Switching gears, I wanted to talk just a little bit about this very unique BBC article that came out. In essence, the article talks about this couple that had a food blog. Their name was something like Pear something or other. What was their name here? Looking. Let's see. Either way, the Munsons basically had their image challenged by Apple Corporation, right? By the Apple, formerly Apple Computer Inc. The Apple said basically their image was really too similar to their own logo, and that they needed to go ahead and basically shut down their brand. And so, it was, so you can see here, it looks like a little pear. It looks very dissimilar to the Apple in my perspective, but Apple came after them. Okay, so this is March 2020, and so you have this business that is basically having to fight back against a huge corporation regarding what seemingly on its face seems like a rather benign challenge to Apple's brand generally. So I'm just bringing this to everyone's light because I'm sure that the Munsons will be fine. They have people who are supporting them, and they will survive as a business owner. But I've seen over and over and over again in my career these circumstances where basically a large company comes in and wants to protect their brand, and the work that you can do now to protect yourself from that is to just make sure you're paying attention, that you're not going up against major companies, even mid-sized enterprises that your brand is similar to. Even when W3 Consulting started, I got a letter, an email from the W3 Consortium, which is the World Wide Web Consortium, the accrediting body for all the standards on the World Wide Web, and we just had to have that conversation about, okay, W3C is a trademark term. We need to make sure that we're just separating and making sure people don't have that confusion. So just as a reminder that we have to do these things to make sure that we're protecting ourselves, because quite honestly, this couple didn't mean any harm to Apple, but Apple is pursuing them, that they are doing some kind of harm. And it's just important for you to remember that it's not necessarily that harm is actually being created, but that there's a perception of harm on the part of the business, and that corporation has huge legal coffers to be able to go after small businesses like that. And just by virtue of papering them to death, they can get what they want. They don't need to be able to be right legally in the circumstance to actually put their foot down on situations like that. Okay, next up in news this week, I came across the news and am very excited because Telegram, which is the application that I use with all of my clients, in essence, it is a messaging app just like WhatsApp or WeChat or any of those other messaging apps that are out there, but Telegram is end-to-end encrypted, and their history is actually a little bit kind of interesting. They were challenged by the Russian Federation to, in essence, leave Russia because people were using Telegram, dissidents, political dissidents, other folks were using it as a way to circumvent the surveillance by the Russian government. And so Russia said, forget it, we don't want you in there. And turn of events, a lot of political operatives as well as politicians started using Telegram because of Telegram's end-to-end encryption of messages. And then Russian officials basically turned about face on it and said, you know what? We're embracing Telegram. We love its abilities and capabilities, and it's become this popular messaging app. It's now in the top 10 most downloaded apps in the world, and it is a fantastic platform. Well, for their 7th anniversary, they have brought video calls to the platform in alpha testing. So you can now make video calls. It's very seamless. You could make audio calls before. Now you can make video calls. They're hopefully in the next few months, they're going to be bringing group video calls, and the cool thing about it is that it's end-to-end encrypted. So here you have now a free program that gives you high security and the ability to now do video calls with clients. So I'm just very, very bullish on the idea of Telegram, and I'm very excited to see it happening. I run several Telegram groups for different colleagues of mine, and now having the ability to do video calls, I think, is a great next step. Okay. Next up in news is Search Engine Journal recently announced 2 interesting items. One is that there is a new Bing Webmaster tools that was announced, and so now we should start seeing new features coming into the Bing Webmaster tools. So if you think of the Google Search Console, Bing Webmaster tools is the Microsoft version of that for their search engine, and some of those tools are robots.txt tester, a bunch of audit tools for SEO, and a URL inspection tool so that you can see whether or not a specific URL is indexed properly in the system. But the most important part of the news that I saw in Search Engine Journal was that Quora is now going to allow lead generation forms for advertisers. So in essence, you will now be able to put in, this seems like 12 form fields to choose from, including contact information, how people are employed, and also some location data that you can collect from folks. And so if you're advertising on Quora, similar to how Instagram and Facebook allow for that interface where you, in essence, in the app can press on a button and then in the ad, and then it'll open up a form for people to be able to complete and collect data. That's happening in Quora itself. And I'm curious. I'll see what happens as people start to use Quora and how the lead generation converts for people who are on Quora altogether. So I'm just very excited to see Quora, again, giving more access to data to small businesses who otherwise wouldn't have that data. Next up is just a bit of cybersecurity news, and I wanted to let folks know about a couple of things. In the month of October, I think I've announced this before, but I'm going to just say it again just because I don't remember. So October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. The National Cybersecurity Alliance, as well as CISA, which is the Cyber and Information Security Agency, part of the federal government. They are partnering to do National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and W3 Consulting is one of their cybersecurity champions, and we are going to be doing some webinars focused on cybersecurity for small business. So look out for us to be putting those things out. If you're not on our email list, go ahead and add yourself to our email list, and we'll be putting some information out for folks there. And we'll be announcing very soon a new newsletter. And so we're actually going to be putting out a monthly newsletter where we can round up all of the topics and go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that I'll be talking about and writing material there for that as well. So it's going to be called the Web and Beyond Report, and very excited to bring Web and Beyond Report to our kind of list of properties that we publish. We've never really been email newsletter publishers. We've really just used our emails for transactional purposes, and now we'd like to make that a little bit beefier. But either way, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month is October, and unfortunately, there's been a data breach for this particular company based out of Hong Kong, but it impacts users of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And so this company is called Social Data, and they, in essence, had the personal information for about 235 million users of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, all of this data is public information. So it's profile name, a person's full real name, a profile photo, some account description data, whether their profile belongs to a business or has advertisements, some statistics, yada, yada, yada. The real problem here, though, is that if you have a company that collected all of this data into one centralized space, and now that data has been breached, that allows identity theft to happen for you as a small business owner. You probably have a whole bunch of information about yourself in those accounts, and with it, now I could potentially call your credit card company, and I have some information about you that they might ask me, or I might call your payroll provider and talk to them and be able to answer some of their security questions, things of that nature that allow for phishing attacks, other social engineering type attacks to happen. So that being the case, like with any breach, if you use Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, you should go change your password. So that YouTube account tied to your Google account, I've already gone ahead and done that this morning. I went and I changed my Instagram password to a long random password that was generated by my password manager, LastPass. I went into Instagram, did the same thing on my Instagram account. And I did the same thing for YouTube associated with my Google account. So I just went in and changed the passwords and went on with my day. But now I know that whatever those people had or did, while that's not the exposed data, there was no passwords exposed. It's just good practice to do that every time one of these things happens. One other little pro tip is that I actually always put fake dates, unique dates. So for every account that I create, so say my Google account or my Instagram account or otherwise, if it asks you for like a profile, a birthday, or gender, or those kinds of things, I just make it up. I have no responsibility to those platforms to tell them the truth about who I am or what I am. So I always put in a fake birthday. Make sure you track that in your password manager. So I just write that down, wherever I keep my passwords, and gender, race, all of those things. I just make all that information up. And so I it's random across all those programs, so that if this kind of thing does happen, they do not have that data consolidated about something real about me or the business. I just like to keep that stuff random and as best as I can keep the hackers on their toes. Okay, so that actually is all of the productivity. I'm sorry, all of the kind of small business marketing news of this particular week. And so I want to jump into some of the items that happened in the past month regarding social media, kind of our social media part 2. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was a rather interesting article that a British newspaper put out, and they called it "How Social Media Can Help Retail in the Post-Virus Era." And this was published back at the end of July, but it's really actually useful. And so I wanted to actually, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and try and bring up my screen. And that requires me to choose a new screen. Bear with me a moment here. And let's see if I can do this. Yes, I can. Wonderful. Okay, so what you should be seeing on screen now is the article, How Social Media Can Help Retail in the Post-Virus Era. And they offer 3 suggestions, basically what people are seeing in terms of their needs. And again, this was focused on UK retailers and UK residents, but I think it fairly generalizes to a global luxury country, so something like the United States. And so it says the consumers' top shopping concerns right now are social distancing, wearing masks, and then getting social customer service. And so they talk about this notion of people are having conversations online about social distancing. They're having conversations about mask wearing, and they're having conversations about getting help through social media because they're not comfortable going to a store to get that kind of customer service, so they're seeking more digital means for doing that. Now, what they say here is that what retailers can do, what you can do in retail, is are these 3 things: listen for and respond to any negative press about your store, understand rapidly changing customer behaviors, and market the right products at the right time, and then thirdly, leverage social listening insights to inform a paid ads strategy. Now, here goes my thoughts regarding all of this. First and foremost, you have to really think thoughtfully about the fact that the notion of social distancing is a regulatory issue. So if your locality, in terms of your city, your county, region, state, whatever, has mandated those things, then you should be following to the letter of the law, right? You should be following the letter to the regulations provided to you by industry and by standards within your jurisdiction. I would also make sure that your marketing messaging, including your ad messaging, was pro health and safety as well as affordability, right? We want to make sure that people are knowing that you care about the context of what's happening right now. Okay, so not just listening and responding to negative press. I think that's important. You should have some social reputation and social listening activity going on, but I think it takes you a step further and ahead of the crowd by doing that. Now, big landmine. Remember that what we're primarily concerned about right now, at least I am for my clients, is the politicization, the political sort of hand wringing that's going on around what seems to be practical, ideas around maintaining and managing through the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic. So I think you need to just make sure that the brand is messaging itself properly, which is to say that we care about your health and safety. No matter what your political beliefs are, we don't need to talk about political beliefs to know that we care about your health and safety. And in order to do that, we want to be able to implement these practices that are both following regulations, but also maintaining a good experience, a good retail experience for our customers. Okay, so that's the message you want to be pushing forward, along with, of course, affordability, because we are in an economic downturn and people are now tightening their belts across the spectrum. Then, of course, it says understand rapidly changing customer behaviors. That's absolutely on point. I think you need to be on a weekly basis surveying your best customers and understanding what is going on. Now, surveying may be picking up the phone and talking to just a few of them to get a sampling. It may be sending out an email survey once a week, maybe once every other week, and seeing what's going on with them. This not only increases the perception that you care, which I hope you do, but it certainly is a good marketing piece that will help you going forward into and beyond the pandemic, because it's important for people to know you care and you're going to get more information. Even if you send it out to your entire email list or you put it out onto social media and your followers, maybe only 5-10% of them over the whole course of this time frame fill out the survey, you're going to learn more than you did before this all happened, which means you'll be able to use that marketing research to determine whether or not your customers' behaviors, whether it's B2B or B2C, is changing and how it's changing because of this. So I want you to make sure that you're going out there and you're sending emails out to your customers. We've been doing this for our web hosting clients, determining whether they are planning on launching new websites, what their hosting needs are. So we just took a sampling and we've been sending out to strategic groups of our clients and just saying, hey, what's going on here? Well, how are you dealing with this? And how is this changing your behaviors? And it's been really, really interesting to watch what's happening and how they're responding to those. And we're going to continue to do that, just taking small subsets of our web hosting clients and sending out strategic surveys to be able to learn from them over the course of this period. And that means we'll be able to be more nimble and provide them with the products and services that they need in order to be successful. And that's really the most important part. Next up is leveraging the social listening insights in terms of paid. This is actually really important for growth beyond the pandemic. And so when a lot of people are thinking about how they're going to survive the pandemic, that's really difficult to think about how you're going to thrive after it. But in a post-pandemic world, as this article is talking about, it's going to be really important for you to think about, yeah, you can have a lot of really great business now, especially if you're in a category of business that's not highly impacted by the pandemic. But after it, you're going to see that drop if you're not doing the right things to get paid and to solidify your dominance in your particular industry, niche, and geographic region. So you really want to pay attention to how you take advantage of that. I know that I'm doing the same thing. I'm thinking about how am I going to build and grow our community, establish ourselves so that when this is all over, this is really, this is a very busy time for me and my company. But after the pandemic, we're going to see a dip. And I want to be able to put into place stuff both in a digital environment, explicitly for us as a digital experience, so that we can make sure that after this is all over, we don't then have a reduction. And so we do all of this growth work during this period and then die off in the end. So we're putting our paid ad strategy forward now, and really depending upon that to be able to get us through and over the hurdle post-pandemic, right? We want to be able to set ourselves up for those folks to be really inculcated in our brand and wanting our services, so that after this is all over, we land on our feet and we don't stutter along that process. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of making your way forward. A couple of really big ticket items that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention was that Facebook is in the process of putting together a new redesign. And you may have seen it start to roll out for you, but in essence, what they're calling classic Facebook is going away. And that means you need to start getting comfortable with the new Facebook experience, but more to the effect that not just getting around Facebook, which is a productivity issue, you need to make sure your staff and everybody else is comfortable with it, both on the desktop, but also on mobile, is the other side to it, which is what is the experience going to be different and how is it going to be different for customers going forward? That means how are they going to experience your brand? You need to start looking at how your posts look, how they show up and how they do those kinds of things, so that you're able to better understand your customers' needs going forward on something like your Facebook page or in Facebook groups that you're running. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Just a couple of announcements regarding Instagram and Facebook. Facebook launched Facebook Shops and Instagram Shop back they announced it back in July, and so what we're seeing now is that. I'm sorry, they announced that back in May, but after May, we have been seeing Facebook bring Facebook Shops and Instagram to new countries and new markets. We're going to continue to see that scaling out. I think that my current statement on the matter is that I'm going to say Instagram and Facebook Shops are great syndication portals. If you don't currently have an e-commerce platform, then I suggest you go out and find the right e-commerce platform. You'll see that I've done webinars on the topic. You can go out there and find lots of information on selecting the right e-commerce platform for you. But using Facebook Shops or Instagram Shop as your sole place sets you up for a huge amount of risk. I mean, it's a huge weakness in the company if the only place you can sell your wares is on the Facebook platform. I think it's too much risk for businesses to take. I hear and I get the emails every day about Facebook has shut me down. My Facebook page is no longer active. My Instagram account has been shut off for some particular reason, and trying to gain access to it. You need to own more of your property than rent in the category of e-commerce. You can't depend upon Facebook, which owns Instagram, to really host and maintain all of your e-commerce if you're depending upon that for your business's survival. Some of you will not want to, go through the headache of hosting your own e-commerce solution and those kinds of things. That's fine. There are platforms out there that makes it very, very simple. You go and you sign up for an account, and you have an e-commerce capability almost immediately. So this notion that it's difficult to do in terms of the technology necessary is a moot point. I mean, that's easily set aside. So Facebook making it easy on your Facebook page or Instagram to do that is good on them. Because they're trying to help some of those businesses who just have no capabilities. But if you're watching me here and now on YouTube, you basically have the skills to be able to launch an e-commerce platform to be able to do that. That is to launch an e-commerce shop on one of the e-commerce platforms that are out there. So do not go ahead and think that Facebook Shop and eventually Facebook Pay are going to really be the solutions where you'll just be able to do everything on those platforms and not have any risk. I think there's just too much downstream risk to having all of your eggs in one basket. Okay, I want to be able to control that stuff, and I want you to be able to control that stuff, so that no matter what happens, somebody decides to take umbrage with your business, somehow you get caught in some kind of political heat, which is very possible in the social media world today, and you don't want to be in that position. So I think that it's just good for you to be able to basically have yourself protected in that regard. Okay, next up is just a pretty big announcement, which is that we know that TikTok has been back and forth with the current U.S. White House administration, fighting them over restrictions that they applied to them. And so we don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, but we do know that they're currently banned. India has gone ahead and also banned TikTok nationwide. And so while the use of TikTok isn't banned in the United States, their ability to transact commercially here is. So there's a whole bunch of problems going on behind the scenes. In that vacuum, Facebook has decided to step in and try to grab some of that market share. And so they have rolled out on Instagram a new product within the suite called Reels, a new feature. Reels is, in essence, a TikTok clone built into the Instagram interface, and it allows you to be able to create and publish short videos. These are you can record and edit 15-second videos, and you have a whole bunch of special features just like you would in Instagram proper, and they can be shared in your Instagram feed, stories, and you can do Instagram direct, basically messaging people directly with those reels. Once your reel goes public, they can actually then be pulled into other people's reels and used and repurposed. So you must be conscious of the fact that when you create something, you are giving permission to Instagram to give permission to any other users to use it in that capacity. So it's now available here in the US and along with 49 other countries, including Australia, Canada, Japan, and otherwise. And so we're going to see more and more people now jump on board with Instagram's Reels because, quite honestly, TikTok is, of course, in this space of unknown, outcomes regarding their political fight. The trade war happening between the United States and China. And the reality is that if it can be built into a platform that you're already using, why not do that? So we're seeing that come to bear. So check out Instagram Reels and let me know what your what you're coming across. Okay, next up is there are new fonts within Instagram Stories. So if you were feeling limited by the Instagram Stories fonts, you've got some new fonts that they are pushing out into the system. So you'll see that rolling out throughout the month of August. And then last but not least, in kind of the biggest swath of changes on Instagram is that you're going to start seeing Instagram and Messenger direct messages, those messages within Instagram direct message and Messenger merge over the next few weeks and month. So what's going to happen is now you're going to see your Instagram direct messages and your Messenger now have those messages consolidated into one interface. I think this is actually going to be really good for business. I don't particularly know how Congress is going to. I mean, when Mark Zuckerberg was before Congress most recently, he was grilled by them about that fact, and so I don't know how they're going to like him doing this, but he's doing it, and I'm going to like it because it will help me streamline communications with folks who do write to me there. I do have a pretty strong standard about if you're going to communicate with us, we move that to email so that I can be kind of conscientious and manage things appropriately. But a lot of businesses manage completely with their customers in that space, and it makes a lot of sense for those to be consolidated into a single space. Okay. Next up is in the Twitter world. Twitter has recently announced Twitter Voice, and I talked about this back, I think, in June or July. But now you should see a larger number of users who can now use Twitter Voice. In essence, you're going to have an option to put out a 140-second audio clip to tweets, and we're going to see more and more users getting that on Twitter. Then last in news, before we close out, is that YouTube has announced a new blog, their official blog, which is now available at blog.youtube. Okay, so the TLD, or the top level domain, is .youtube, like .com, .net, .org. So you go to blog.youtube, and that is where they're now going to be putting out their official statement. So I will be monitoring and watching it. And they recently actually announced their most recent update, that is, about so you can see here, they announced the most recent YouTube originals that they've been working on. So on July 25th, they had actually asked everybody on the planet to submit a video to them about their day. And so they did it on July 25th, and they're in the process now of editing and putting it all together, and it will actually be put together into this they're going to obviously only select a few of them and put them into a video, but they were thanking everybody for participating in Life in a Day 2020. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how they stitch this all together. They said they had 300,000, I think, submissions. Yeah, 300,000 submissions, 191 countries, more than 65 languages. So thousands of hours of footage. They're going to try and put this all together and put it into one video, and then they'll put it out. So yeah, they're going to share the finished film in 2021. It's going to take them that long to go ahead and do all the editing. That being the case, this is where they're posting everything. Oddly enough, there's no RSS feed here for this particular blog. You would think that YouTube, of all places, would know that they would need to put out a feed so that people could track and maintain this information coming to them, but there is no actual feed for it. So don't be shocked if you notice that you can't actually do that. Okay, a couple of interesting notes from Robin from Startup to Growth. She said, awesome tip about random information on different platforms, that she uses a fake birthday because of security issues. So absolutely go, Robin. I think absolutely use fake information on the platforms if you can. Of course, if they require it for certain things, I get it. But as best as you can, I say give them fake information. Robin's asking, do you have any thoughts about retail customers signing COVID-19 waivers? That is, she's hearing more and more about COVID-19 waivers for clients, attendees, employees, etc. I say if you can, in some way, shape, or form, limit your risk as a business, yeah, I say go for it. There's of course going to be market limiters to that, right? There's going to always be somebody who doesn't like that or wants you to be able to do something different, and so you're going to get some level of pushback potentially from others. I can see for events, That's very easy to do. You make it part of the event registration, so you can possibly do that. Depends on the client base and who you're dealing with for there to be waivers, and it's going to be pretty difficult to have someone sign a waiver in a normal retail environment where they're just walking in and out. Maybe you'd have a digital display outside the business where people can go ahead and basically say, I agree to hold this retail environment harmless. I'm taking responsibility for wearing a mask, making sure that I'm social distancing, and making sure that I'm cleaning surfaces or cleaning my hands upon entry or exit from those locations and not touching myself in the face and otherwise during that time frame. So I can see that being useful, and I thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a really good point that we should be working on these kinds of behavioral interventions to make policies in the retail environment for people to be able to use. And then there's one final question Robin's asking. In those conversations, it's a great time to ask what other services would you like. Oh, so this is regarding surveying customers. So what we've been doing in our emails out to our customers, she's saying, what other services would you like to see a company like mine offer? What is missing in the marketplace? Absolutely. Those are really, really high times to be able to go out there and say to everybody, what would you like to see us do? What can we do to make this a better experience for you? What can we do to be a better partner for you in the community? And that's what great small businesses do, and that's what I want to see everybody doing. This is the time to pivot, to kick the tires on your products and services and see what other things you can do, and diversifying your revenue streams, because you really don't know what's going to take hold now or after the pandemic is all over. So with that, we have come to the end of our time, and I know we went over a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure we got through all the social media news. But we have come to the end of our time together this week. If you enjoyed the live stream, please feel free to hit the thumbs up icon. That does help us make new small business friends and bring new people into the fold. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you have a question, if I missed something, if I got something wrong, which happens on occasion, feel free to leave a comment under the video and correct. Also, you can tweet or message me at W3 Consulting on Twitter. That's my social network of choice. You can always find me on Twitter, but at W3 Consulting. And feel free to join us every Monday here at 11 a.m. Eastern, unless we otherwise note on social channels that'll be another time. We are here on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for spending this Web and Beyond live with me. I'm Ray Sidney Smith on behalf of W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services. Have a great week ahead marketing your small business on the Web and Beyond. Take care, everybody.